Guys, Chris, my brother Christian is a chief product officer. Is that correct, Chris? At iCash or Purse, Purse Digital. They do payment processing. Chris and I were talking earlier about some stuff with managing a team. Chris, could you just share with them what you shared with me and just some tips you have if somebody's if they're managing a team, or if they're working in a workplace, or if they're in a managerial position of any kind, what can they do to kind of be an effective manager, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've got lots of thoughts on the topic. Maybe a good way to do this could be like, maybe you can tell me some struggles that you've had, and then I'll kind of like the onion will peel itself, kind of peel back the layers.
Well,
I don't know.
Sometimes being direct with people is difficult, right? So how do you deal with just being direct and ensuring that everyone's on the same page as far as your expectations of performance, right?
Okay. Yeah. Good question. So I think there are definitely a few things. Now, I want to first kind of disclose that, I'm probably not like a foremost expert in this, but a lot of kind of these ideas I've definitely collected from people who are really, really successful. But also over the last like 3 years, my team has evolved from kind of like, mediocre to absolute killers. So I am so blessed to have the people working for me that do, because they're awesome. But it wasn't overnight that we got here. So I'll tell you a couple of things that I picked up along the way.
Yeah, how'd you get there?
Yeah. Well, let me start at the beginning. So early on, back 2.5 years ago when I joined here. So I was employee one at this company. Basically, my former boss, basically the founder of this company, hired me right out of college for me. So he kind of sent me an email and said, "Hey, I'm starting this company. Let's talk about it." And then over the next like 4 months, we kind of just went back and forth and talked about all the ideas and possibilities and stuff. And then ultimately I pulled the trigger and packed up my bags, moved out to Oregon, basically crossed the country. Literally did a cross country road trip coming out for this job. And kind of when it came time to add new people to the team and start bringing on engineers. So I should actually set that background as well. So we're basically a technology company. So we build a software platform for merchants and consumers to transact. At its core, it really is just a commerce platform. It's very, very simple in that way. The kind of secret sauce that we have is around the payment mechanism, and then kind of the approach we're taking to bringing merchants and consumers together. We kind of have an interesting angle on that. Lots of businesses do it pretty cookie cutter way. We have kind of interesting way of doing that. So we had to hire software engineers. So I myself knew how to code, but obviously one person can't build it all. And so when I first started hiring, I kind of just shot from the hip. Didn't really have much of a plan. Figured, okay, I should probably make a job description. Okay, I should probably put my job posting on a platform that will get me applicants. And my first hire was actually someone I knew from college who I had worked with in a few hackathons. And he was like, he was kind of cool because he knew so much about lots of different technology. He was like a mile wide, inch deep, I would say. But his skill was that he could like kind of just pick up any new technology super quickly. And so initially I just kind of like put a job posting on LinkedIn and thought I would get some good results. And I think I got like 30 applicants in a few days. And I was like, oh, that's enough. For those who don't know, that is not enough, especially if you don't have a lot of like filter questions in that LinkedIn form that you can set for job postings. And so I basically ended up with 30 applicants, reviewed their resumes, and kind of really just like picked the ones that like seemed like they might be qualified, because like you get like 30 applicants, but this person doesn't even have any real software engineering experience. This person went to a boot camp and they literally just finished the boot camp, and from like a month before that, not having any software engineering experience. And so like it was super easy to like filter those people out. And then we had like this kind of clunky interview process that wasn't ironed out at all. And so kind of fast forward, we ended up like probably, I would say like a year later with, in my opinion, kind of like, mind you, it was a 7-person team at this point, but kind of bloated, slow. And I felt like I was, carrying sandbags on my back while running up a hill. Like basically like I'm trying to pull the entire team to do any like even small feature, just like every little responsibility is on me to like iron out the details of the feature, that what needs to be built, exactly how it needs to be built. Here's the documentation you need to use. And this is a skill like any person leading any team picks up, but you can't do that, right? That is not sustainable to be like the only person pushing forward. It's like the genius with a thousand arms. Like one person doing like 1,000 different things just through other people is extremely exhausting. That doesn't work. You really do need to just have like distributed decision making. You need to have lots of independent, smart people that can make their own decisions and kind of basically just work toward the same mission. You have a lot of people that are smart, independent, and capable, working toward the same mission. Beautiful things happen. So how did I get to where I am now, where we basically have the same size team, but we had to definitely shed a few people and then kind of backfill with our new hiring process. So I want to tell you guys about the hiring process because I think we have nailed it. We have absolutely honed it down over the years, and it's awesome. So first and foremost, like as far as hiring goes, so I want to say there's 3 things for building a really good team. And we'll talk about the hiring one now, but basically hiring, I think it's basically like any customer acquisition funnel that you have. Like when you're acquiring customers, it's very similar on the other side for getting new employees and building your team. You need to have lots of people apply, right? You need to have a very, very like law of large numbers. You just get people applying. A few of them are going to be awesome, and they're going to be perfectly aligned with the role that you're looking to fill. So lots of applicants. We did LinkedIn promoted listings is what it's called. So we basically promoted our job posting. I think we spent $90 and got 400 plus applicants for 2 roles that we were trying to fill. We were looking to hire 3 people. So think about that, 3 people for 400 plus applicants. So that's less than 1% of applicants that we hired. And so that's the first thing, lots of people. Second thing is make sure your interview process is pretty dialed. But even before that, and so the reason I say that interview process needs to be dialed is because your interview process is kind of like pre-onboarding when you actually bring the employee on. Really what you should be doing in the interview process is setting expectations and really just communicating like what the culture that you're trying to build is supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, so many people have strong opinions about where they want to work, the lifestyle they want to have while they're working, the team they want to work on, frankly, how hard they want to work. Like, what is their goal? If their goal is to like have a chill job and just like, do coding and like meet, like have fun, play ping pong, like that's fine, right? But you just got to know that for your team. Like, what are you looking to do? And so I'd say this advice applies for software. I can try to generalize it at the end, but okay. So interview is basically culture setting. That's kind of what you're doing. You're like culture setting, but then you're also like trying to assess whether or not this person is going to be right for the role as far as experience and frankly, intelligence. So I'll kind of leave that aside, but I want to talk about the job posting. What you should be doing with your job description, right? So the actual like couple paragraph thing that you put out there, you need it to like fully embed, like you need to fully embed your team's culture and identity into that job description. That job description is basically an advertisement for like-minded people. So you need to weave in the exact, like, don't worry about offending people or stepping on anyone's toes, because and when I say offending people, like I'm simply saying like people will get offended if you say like my team works hard. Like, yeah, so your job post, your job description, wherever you post it, we do LinkedIn because LinkedIn's really good for software engineers, I think. But wherever you're posting your job description should be like it should like tell the reader exactly how your culture is, right? Like, frankly, I would go so far as to say is like, you want the people who you don't want to apply for your job, you want them to almost get like offended or laugh or think that this job description sounds stupid. I would go so far as to say that, because at the end of the day, like I said, hiring the right people is a funnel. You need lots of people at the top of that funnel, and then you just need to filter out the people that won't work. Because if if everybody applies, you're going to have to be doing all the filtering, and you don't want that. You really do want as much of like a short list as you can. So your job description needs to like embody that culture really, really well. So like I think ours was like had some jokes in it, had some stuff that was like, if you don't like this, stop reading now and go, like, I don't know, go drink like go drink some tea by the fire or something like that. It was literally like
Right.
pretty out there. But we got emails, like straight like email. People were like, okay, I'm just going to email this company directly. Like, I read your job posting. This is my dream job. Like, I love the scrappy culture that you guys are building. I operate best on teams like that. And we got out, like, inbound people just reaching out when they saw that description. I guess it's not totally inbound, but you get the point. Like, it will you will get self-selection efficiencies from that. So that's one is your job description. Make that thing awesome.
Can I hop in on that, double click? So this is reminding me a lot of brand and branding. Branding, you can think of it as just the personality of the business, right? And Gary Vee talks a lot about, if you try to be something for everyone and not just be authentically your brand personality, you're actually going to alienate the people that do really resonate with you, right? So by being that authentic, by expressing your authentic culture for your team in that job description, yes, you're excluding people, good, but you're also including other people, right? So we have to be ourselves and really just stay true to the culture that we want, because we are then going to include the people that we want and exclude the people that we don't want. If we're in this weird in the middle, now we're not really grabbing people that we do want, and now we're not filtering out the people that we don't want. So branding, the back end, your team, is also very similar to the front end and the customers that you want and the clients that you want to attract as well. So branding goes further than just your product, right? It goes into your back end and your team and everything as well. So I think a theme here is just authenticity. Be true to the expectations that you want your team, and the performance that you want, because then you'll attract that performance, you'll attract those team members, and you'll exclude the people that you don't want. But sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think on that point about sort of excluding people, this is 100%. This is something that is really, really good for the people that this job would not be a good fit for. The last thing those people want to do is waste you don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to get yourself into a situation. And I've experienced this. It's very painful when you've hired the wrong person. They're clearly not a culture fit. They do not have the same goals. They do not have the same sort of mission as far as what they want to do with this particular job. And then if you have to let them go, and by the way, those are hard decisions. They need to be made. Like, if you're somebody, and I'm sort of public service announcement, if you're somebody who has very specific goals or big goals when it comes to building your team or building your business, and you know that you're going to need lots of very, very I would say lots of people that fit a very specific mold. Whether if you're building a service-based business and you're fixing roofs. I don't know if you're fixing roofs. If you're fixing roofs. Anyways, and you need people who just love this, and they're okay, I need people who are lifers, they're planning to do this their whole life. They're not apprentices, people who actually have lots of experience. They enjoy doing this. You need to hire those people, and you want to make sure that you don't get the wrong people in the door, because then you're gonna have to fire them. It's gonna suck. So this is a good thing. You should get an award. You're a moral person for writing a job description that makes the people you don't want to work for you laugh or chuckle or feel maybe even be offended at your job description. That's a good thing. You're doing them a favor too. So don't view this if you have you gotta kind of cast aside the possibility that some people are going to look at you differently if they see your job description, because it's oh yeah, we like to work really hard. We get a lot of energy from putting in extra hours and building really cool stuff and shipping it to customers fast and iterating on our features and our product and making it perfect and great. striving for excellence in speed and in quality, right? So these things are like fine to say. Like you will filter out the people that you don't want working for you, and that's a good thing. So that's about the job description. Kind of the next phase with interviewing. Your interviews should, like I said, be sort of like pre-onboarding. Think about it like this. Imagine they do go through the interview process and then you hire them. They already know what they're getting into. That's what they should, that's the kind of mindset they should have after the interview process. Because here's what a lot of people do that I've seen in it, or I've made this mistake, is like you interview people and you learn a lot about them and you ask them tons of questions and you gauge how competent they are at the particular, job that you're hiring for. They don't know anything about the company, right? They don't know that much. They know probably what the product is. They probably know what you're building, but they don't like know what it's going to be like working there day to day. So that's kind of what you need to be setting in the interview. I would do the following. Write out some things that you find very important. Ask yourself, what are things that I get frustrated by with maybe lower performers on my team? What are some things that bother me? Ask yourself, what are the pain points I have as a leader of the organization? And then take those things and then invert them and use that to create core values. Create your team core values, write down 4 or 5, and then just rattle them off in the interview. Say, you give the little like pitch on the company. So actually, let's get into the tactics of the actual interview process. So what we do is we do a screening call. So, and it's like a 30-minute screening call. So actually, I'll go one step back. 400 applicants, filter that down to, I would say 20, right? So you kind of like, well, let me back up here. For our one role, we had 280 applicants, and the other role we had like 150 or something like that, or 190. So like a little bit, give or take 20, 200 for each of those roles, about 200 applicants. We basically filtered those down to 20, which we did screening calls for. So that is what, 1%, or 10%. That's 10% of your applicants. Get 10% of your applicant pool, do a screening call with all of them. In the screening call, I would say 3 things need to happen. One, first and foremost, you need to filter them out, right? So you need to decide, is this person going to be a good fit, right? Are they, can they tell me what they did clearly, like at their last job? Like, can they communicate clearly what they did? Because I couldn't. The number of people that simply couldn't like make a clear explanation as to what they actually did on a day-to-day basis at their last job told me that they were probably someone who just like kind of floated around and didn't really like contribute to any major projects. So people that contributed to major projects are excited to tell you about them. They want to tell you about all the hard work they put in and like the problems that they solved. So come up with a list of questions. Like a lot of times you can get the right people spilling the beans on the cool stuff that they did and the problems they solved. That part I don't think is that hard. The 2 other things you need to do in that screening call is you need to like get them excited about your company, right? Like sell them on it, like give them the grand vision. Like, this is where we are, this is where we're going, and this is why you should be excited about it right now, right? So like a sales call, right? This is kind of like the same, like I said, on the other side of like customer acquisition, then you have the other side of this, which is, I guess like employee finding, whatever, employee searching. So sell them on the vision, make sure that you can do that clearly and concisely, but then also, if you can make a case to them as to why it's really exciting opportunity for them, they're going to be that much more excited to tell you about what they've done. So I always like to lead with that. I like to sell them on, to kind of give them the pitch, tell them about our company. And then we start getting into the questions. And then at the end of that screening call, I always do the core values. So I say, just so you know, like, I like to tell about core values because it's very important to us that we find the right people or something like that. And then I'll just say, hey, these are our core values. This is what really, really matters to us as a team. And then I always kind of say this, and I wanted to let you know, tell you about these core values so you can go and think about as to whether or not you'd be a good fit here. Because you want to put it on them and say like, hey, you got to figure out if you're going to be a good fit here. Because, kind of the standard process is like, oh, I'm going into an interview. I'm going to like tell them about my experience and XYZ cookie cutter stuff. But then they don't even think about whether or not they actually want to work there. Usually that happens when they get their offer, right? Which is kind of backwards. Like, you don't want to like give them the offer. Like, this is how much money you could make. This is like, kind of like, here you go. And then they make that decision. You don't want to like get them all the way through your interview process. And then they make the decision as to whether or not they want to work there. And it's just based on, however many zeros come after, their salary. So I would 100% make sure that filtering process happens right at that screening call. We've had a lot of people drop off the interview process, even though they've moved to the next round, just because, I'm sure it's just because of that screening call, right? Like, you can see people visibly almost like chuckle, or like, they're like, not totally comfortable with some of the core values. So, and that's a good thing. Like, we save them time, we save ourselves time. So those are the three things that need to happen in your screening call. We then do basically coding assessment. So our interview process is 3 steps. So we do screening call, we do, and by the way, our screening call is kind of an interview. It's like a long screening call. So screening call, and then we do a take-home assessment. We do a coding assignment that takes probably 3 hours. Some people think that's a lot, but the type of people that we were hiring for, which I will touch on, by the way, because you do need to like identify your avatar for who you want to hire. But we basically provide a coding assessment that takes about 3 hours. And based on the results of those, we decide for this final interview, which is basically like, we bring on our engineering team, 4 of us. It's, however many, I would say like max out at like 3 or 4 people on that final call. But that final call is basically a way for your team to get a sense of this person and decide from a kind of tribal fit perspective, right? Like, from a sort of tribal perspective, like, is this person going to like mesh well? Like, does my team like this person? Do they kind of get a good vibe from them? And then a lot of times, other engineers on your team will be able to kind of sense something that you didn't notice, which is like, that person seemed kind of like fake, right? And that can sometimes be an indicator, and you might have to go dig back through some of your notes and see if it matches up with anything that you've noticed in the other interview. So those are the 3 steps we have. We do kind of a verbal demonstration of competence, right, in the screening call, and then we have like a legitimate like demonstrate your competence with this actual task, and then finally we just have like a sort of team meeting and frankly, like, if you get to that final interview, you're basically hired. It's really just like a final sniff test for the whole team to be involved. I want to touch back on the avatar thing, but before I do you have any thoughts or things to add?
No. Yeah. What?
Okay. So when it comes to like who you want to hire, you need to identify a few things. Obviously, you need to like, you should be hiring based on what problems your team needs to solve, right? Like, if you're just hiring to hire, like, you're not going to do it. You're never going to do it well, right? If you're like, oh, we just need to increase headcount. Okay, well, why do you need to increase headcount? Use like 5 whys, right? If there's anything complicated, use the 5 whys framework. Just like, okay, well, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do that? Why do I need to do that? And you just keep digging down and you get to the core of something. Yep. So find out, use 5 whys and ask yourself, okay, well, why do we need to increase headcount? Okay, well, because we have that like really big feature to build, and we're going to need a lot of extra people in order to like manage all of these new features. Okay, well, why do we need like multiple people to manage these new features? Well, because we haven't built the automation needed to like run build those features, or deploy those features with only 3 people or 1 person. Okay, well, why not that, right? So, and then you kind of get exactly like the avatar that you need. And so one of the differentiating kind of metrics that I would use is like, what stage in their career are you looking to hire from, right? Because there's people who are very experienced, there's people who have mild experience, there are people who are brand new, fresh out of college, looking to get their feet, get their feet wet and just get involved in something. We were hiring the latter, right? The last of those avatars. So we were specifically looking for younger people, not necessarily age, but like young in their career, so that they would be really, really interested in learning a broad range of things, and not necessarily an expert in any one thing. Like, it's fine if you're not an expert. you need experts if you're building something that requires expertise, right? If you're building something that really just require, like, you just need like the bricks to be laid, but the blueprints are pretty simple. You should absolutely hire people that are just going to have lots of kind of young career energy and be really interested in just learning as much as they can, doing a lot, and frankly, in our case, work is like non-routine, and so sometimes like the work schedule is non-routine. So we wanted people who are like comfortable hanging out late. We'll order a pizza and like the team can work late, and we'll ship a feature. So identify the avatar. That's what I would say. Definitely identify who you want to hire, because that'll help you a lot in the filtering process when you're looking through those resumes. Because we've gone through the interview process with folks who are just way too senior in their career, and then when we get to the point where we give them the offer, they're like, "Whoa, like I can't do this." Like,
it's just being able to not having to teach an old dog new tricks, and just knowing exactly who you're looking for. Are they going to be able to adapt to this situation, that situation? And that comes with experience, right? If you're on your team for months and months and years, and hey, these are things that we have to do often. This is the type of person that we're going to need, to fill this wide, wide receiver role, or this, running back role. Like, you have to know those different attributes. So totally agree.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to say, like, there are absolutely times where someone who's more senior makes sense. In fact, like, that's what most companies hire for. So I like to think about it this way when it comes to like people, like, frankly, like, people on your team, right? You have people. Well, let me kind of frame it this way. When it comes to like accomplishing anything complicated, you have people that have done it before, right? So experience. And then you have people that are like hungry to learn very quickly. And I guess I would just say, like, just really bright, like really sharp, right? Like, you put them in any situation and they're just going to be able to figure it out, right? So like one of them relies on, oh, I've done this before. So like I've got credibility, I've got a track record, and I know how to do it already because I've done it before. And that's usually someone who's more senior in their careire.
Chris, real quick to cut you off, we're going to take a break and come back right after the break. So Chris, you were saying about the seniority.
Yeah. There are kind of two types of like indicators of someone's fit for a particular role, right? And there's like experience, and then there's intelligence, I guess I would say. Basically, if somebody has already done something, right, they've got the credibility, they already know how to do it. So like you put them in a situation and they're like, I've already done this, so I know how to do it. I can accomplish the task. And then there's, a different type of person who maybe hasn't done it, but they're hungry and they're smart, and you put them in a situation, and present them with a problem, and they'll be able to solve it because they have those two attributes. They're hungry and smart. So kind of like there are reasons to hire either of those in a different case. Like, if you want something, if you need like a guarantee that something's going to be done with like sort of industry standard, quality, I guess. Yeah, you should hire someone who has experience. You should, be ready to pay for that experience because it's kind of a guarantee that it's going to work, right? It's almost a guarantee that they're going to be able to deliver because they've already done it before and they can demonstrate that. So just know who you need to hire, right? If you have something that's not that complicated to build, or a task that's not super complicated, but it's just tedious, or it's going to require lots of effort, I would always hire someone who's more junior in their career, and sort of tailor all of your hiring, process to that. So that's the avatar piece. That's really important. And then, okay, so let's talk a little bit about, because I think that kind of covered everything for hiring, right? So, we talked about the job description, we talked about culture, we talked about core values, we talked about filtering, we talked about getting, sort of lots of people into the funnel, filtering people out of that funnel. I think a good thing we could talk about now is kind of like how to build that, like, just make sure that your team culture is really good.
Yeah, the onboarding and the retention and the culture after. you know?
Yeah. So so I'd say like if we're kind of boiling this down to like what makes a great team, right? Those are the three things. You've got hiring, you've got expectation setting, and you've got I don't know, I guess culture. Okay, so let's go to the next thing, which is expectation setting. It's kind of like with the once you've kind of selected your applicants and they've accepted their offer letters and everything like that. The next piece of this is to just make it very clear in your onboarding, kind of like what they can expect their first few months to be. So when it comes to ensuring that they're not going to be like, when it comes to like just making like getting them up to speed as fast as possible, setting expectations is key, because you kind of want to eliminate like the emotional noise that can come from like that adjustment, because like, you know, if it's new for anybody, like there's not only the sort of knowledge gap, but then there's also the, I guess, like emotional social gap, which is like, okay, now I gotta like fit in and kind of feel things out. And what I mean by that is, I would just like create a document, 5 bullet points, 10 bullet points, and basically say like, expect these things in your first few months. And just say like, expect that you're going to build, like one of ours is literally like, expect that you're going to build something. And then someone's going to tell you that you did it all wrong and you have to redo it, because this will probably happen. Obviously, you know, that is not ideal. And in fact, it doesn't always happen, but it's something that if you set that expectation, they're going into it with the mindset that like, okay, like, yeah, I'm like learning how their whole system works. I'm trying to understand everything. I'm reading all of their documentation. If I don't get it right the first time, I shouldn't be like super upset at them or myself for having not done this task like the correct way. You know, set expectations. I would just say like, you know, people are going to be very direct with their, like one thing you could add is like, people are going to be direct with their criticism toward your work. Don't take it personally. Like, you know, it doesn't mean that you're doing the work poorly. It's just a way that we can sort of speed up the onboarding and getting you up to speed as far as learning everything, learning the ropes. So set expectations. That's one. Two is I love this idea of like link trees. Linktree is a company, but point is being able to provide all necessary information through one link that links to that has like links to a document containing a bunch of other links and other documents and things like that is super, super valuable. Not only like this is kind of an organizational thing, but also just something that's really useful for people joining your team that, you know, they don't like, if you just give them access to like all of your repositories, like if you're in software, if you just give them access to everything, it's going to be an ocean and they're not going to know where to swim. But if you say like, okay, here's a link, this link will contain a document that contains a bunch of other links as well as some high level documentation for other stuff. And then those links will contain like documentation, and you can really just let them go through absolutely everything one by one. And all you have to do is prepare and send them one link. So I really like this idea that you can kind of provide them the trunk of the link tree and then just let them explore all the branches on their own. And so that's something that's really worth your time to build, because it saves so much time and speed. Like, you know, the amount
everything's
like,
organized. They're able to find all their materials.
Exactly. Everything's organized. You can get them up to speed really quickly because you can just give them something that has all of the information they would need to learn. So I would say like your onboarding process should just be expectation setting, and then make sure you're actually giving them like the information they'll need to like contribute. So, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but you need to do that. I think it saves a lot of time. And something else as far as, I guess this one's like the final point, which I think was culture, but culture is just like repetition. Right. So the things you do repeatedly become like sort of the culture of anything. Like you can kind of extrapolate that to anything. So I would just say culture is repetition.
I think it's brand as well. Like you can literally replace that word with brand. Like what you do repeatedly is your personality, is who you are, is your culture, is what's expected, is the standard. Right. So if you have a brand of our company, we work fast and we ship things on time every single time. That's what we do. That's who we are. That is the culture. That is the brand of the team, right? So it's just simply what the expectation is and how you guys operate, right?
Yeah, I
Correct me if
love
I'm
that.
wrong.
Team brand, 100%
Yeah.
agree. So in order to build that team brand, um, you 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 do need to, like, I mean, there's no like sort of way to sugarcoat this. You need to like call stuff out as soon as you see it. So that's really like the the number one thing for anybody who is a leader of a team. Um, as soon as you see something you don't like, say it right away. It's not always easy to do, but if you let that one thing slide, you're gonna let other things slide, and then it's just gonna be the snowball where like lots of little things will bother you, and then it's just gonna be this kind of like you basically like you missed the mark. Like you threw the dart and it didn't land on the brand that you wanted. It landed on some other thing that doesn't even really apply to your team. So I would say, like, in order to reinforce the team brand, you need to just give the feedback loop needs to be tight. And I would not wait. Like as soon as something you see happens, like don't wait a
Yeah.
day, don't wait a week, don't wait 3 hours. Like say it right away. Say it
As
right
soon
away
as
and
it
be
happens.
about it.
Yeah, because imagine if now you're saying something about something they did a month later, and it's like, dude, I've been doing this thing for weeks now, and now you're telling me about it. It's just
Mhm.
awkward for you. It's awkward for them. So you're telling me the way I was operating for the past 3 months was unacceptable, and you didn't tell me at any point. It's
Mhm.
like as soon as you see something like, hey, this isn't our brand, this isn't how we do things. Like, change this. And it's like, okay, cool. No one likes getting that feedback in the moment. No one likes giving that feedback in the moment, but it's important because this is our standard. This is how our boat is going to continue to progress forward. So it has to be called out immediately. And you're just going to make a bigger problem for yourself if you do it later.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, you need to call it out right away because if you wait too long, it'll be awkward for you, awkward for them, and frustrating for both of you. So that's important. And then encourage your team to like do this for each other, right? Like you can't have just one person kind of setting that tone. Like you do need to like let everyone
I like
communicate with
that
each other directly.
because now
It's
you're
not easy.
you're leveraging other people to do that job as well. So you don't have to be the burden of I'm the only bad guy here. It's like, no, everyone is on the same page that everyone has to be keeping everyone accountable. And that's more power, more leverage for the manager, more leverage for everyone else because everyone's keeping each other accountable, not just one bad guy walking around.
So let me ask you this. How do you do that?
That's a great. I think you just have to sell everybody on the mission of and the and where you're going because if everyone is on the same page that guys, our company is doing this awesome thing and in order to do that we're going to have to act and perform in this way. And then once that one person gets sold on that mission, Jerry in the back gets sold on that, right? He's like, "Dude, I totally agree. This is where we're going. I believe in the mission and that we have to act this way in order to get there." Now, Jerry's just going to feel weird if Sally over there is not doing that because he's bought into the mission, right? So I think it's like you said, culture, getting people bought into the mission, and they're going to naturally want to uphold that for everyone else, or at least look down upon it. And I think actually maybe now that I'm riffing on this, just speaking that desire, just speaking that into existence for your team, right? Hey guys, if you do see this kind of behavior, like let's keep each other accountable, right? Because that's how we're going to really get this to work, right? That's how we're going to make this company great is by keeping each other accountable. So just simply letting them know verbally, hey guys, let's keep each other accountable. If you see something, say something. And just speaking that out, and maybe you could go the route of incentives, but really just having that personality about it is good.
No, I totally agree with you. And that is essentially like, so let me ask you something. Let's say I said, hey, Alex, so as part of this big feature, like we need this very particular, I don't know, I'm trying to not keep it too software specific. Maybe there's no way not to. We need this like ingestion pipeline, like really, really like we need you to build it, Alex. Alex, like you're going to manage that because, you've done that before. Like that's your job. Okay, great. So let's say, Jeff on the team, like gives you like the expected inputs to the backend service that you're creating. Like this is what the data structure that, my service is expecting. Alex, when you're building your ingestion engine, like you should just like build it according to these specs. Okay, you build it, you're working hours, like you're working really, really hard, like to meet the deadline, like so we can ship the feature for the next customer. And then like at the end, you realize Jeff like messed up and he gave you the wrong spec, and it's like it's incorrect, and you're like, now I have to like rewrite this entire like module. Are you going to be mad at Jeff?
It depends on what my personality is, and it also depends on what's expected of me in the company, right? I can't do something.
Right, but let's say like the deadline is Friday for your work, right? And on like, you know, Thursday night, Jeff is like, hey, I messed up this spec. Can you go like, just so you know, like this is the right spec. You'd probably be upset at him, right? Like, dude, you messed this up, and I've been working on this. Now I've got to like redo my work because of your mistake, right? So I guess what I'm saying here is, if you have the team's goals aligned in such a way that there needs to be seamless trust between people, like Alex needs to trust that Jeff did his work with high quality, and Jeff needs to trust that Alex did his work with high quality, then you will naturally get that kind of energy where it's like we are holding each other accountable, because I don't want to let Alex down. I don't want him to be upset at me. I don't want him to, you know, do a bunch of work and then have to redo it because of my mistake. So you got to get these like self people kind of condition themselves almost, as long as you like sort of orient the team's goals in the same direction. Like, so if you kind of do set up things where people do have to rely on each other for high quality work, then you will naturally get people calling each other out if something went wrong. And by the way, like, you should 100% in your core values, you should like describe something that I like to call constructive disagreement, which is basically where you can call people's BS out in a friendly way. And you can do it without like making enemies and like having social strife, because at the end of the day, you know, it is just like kind of fitting pieces together, and it doesn't need to be personal. So friendliness, not being an a-hole, is super, super important. And you just really will get like an awesome team culture if you have, you know, if your team is fully like, if everyone on your team can trust each other to do great work, then you have nailed it. Like that's an awesome thing to witness, when you have like everybody on a team trusting each other to do really, really good stuff, and it all fits together in the end is really, really awesome. So I would say, in order to foster that amongst the rest of the team, right? Because not only like you yourself can't be the only one telling everybody how to do things, or like I said, calling out issues as you see them. If you want your team to do that, you need to orient their goals accordingly, right? So you do need to like set like give them like explain what the mission is, but then also like for the individual tasks and things that like the day-to-day deliverables, orient that so that people need to work together, and that they need to trust each other to do good quality work. And you'll naturally get people, calling each other out if sub-quality work is getting through.
Yeah. And I mean, we've come a long way here in just this talk. So I'd like to quickly just summarize. So starting off on the very front end, right, in the hiring process, right, you got to get a big funnel at the top, a large volume, and then filter as much as you can from there using your culture and your core values, right? Because that culture starts on the very front end, because you don't want anyone who isn't aligned with that getting through, right? And then Christian mentioned some screening calls, the interview itself, getting a few very motivated people in, you know, assessing their seniority, how adaptable, how malleable, what you believe they may need to do as far as tricks and hoops, and then kind of aligning that to the avatar that you're actually looking for and that you actually bring into the team. And then even immediately with the onboarding, you know, having those expectations really crystal clear, direct, dialed in, and then also just being organized with how you're getting them that information. Christian mentioned link trees and things. And then once they're in the organization, the culture, right? Just having that culture of this is what we stand for, this is what we do not stand for. Having that authentic brand about it, like just being authentic to what you're expecting as far as performance, and then being direct with that, because as we know, giving direct feedback is sometimes a bit abrasive, and it's not nice to receive, it's not nice to give, but it's a muscle that we have to build, I believe. And that's something Christian's helped me learn. You know, if we want a good high performing team, we have to be direct and immediate with things that we aren't aligned with, because those are the harder parts. And then things that we are good, we're going to continue to reinforce those behaviors and not reinforce the behaviors that we don't want. And then from there, you'll get a team also on board with that mission, right? Especially if they're very bought into the mission and goals and vision of the organization, to keep each other accountable, because they know, hey, if this work is subpar and now it's affecting my work, I know that I have to produce this thing by this time and it's not going to be acceptable. And so, yes, I'm going to hold you accountable to make sure that your piece is up to par as well. So that's where I think the cohesion and everything comes into play. Christian, do you have any other points about culture and everything? Because I think we've kind of come full circle about just long-term team culture, keeping that culture. Anything else that we could, any other tips for people?
I think like if you're building like a startup, or you're building something where you might have to raise capital. Basically, there's kind of like if you're looking to build a team to found a company, that's very different than if you're looking to just build a team to like deliver on your product or service. Like again, like if you're a service-based business and like you really are the founder, like you put up all the money up front and you're just looking to hire like people that can do specific functions in the business, it is going to be different, at least when it comes to like building a team of I like team of killers, right? If you want a team of killers that are going to help you build a company from the ground up, I think a lot of the advice I gave is probably more applicable there, but I think you can take a lot of the advice and kind of map it to something where you're just hiring people to fill a specific function. But ultimately, when you do build a team of, when you are trying to build a team of killers, you need to incentivize them properly. Like, if you're looking to build a company from the ground up and you're going to raise capital, let them own a piece, let them own a slice of the upside. Because at the end of the day, people think like owners when they are owners. And you want people that think like owners. I think a couple good, like just general metrics, or not general metrics, like mental frameworks you should always just have in the back of your mind when assessing someone as a, whether or not they're going to move forward in your interview process. I like, this is Naval's, Naval came up with this, but it's basically high intelligence, high integrity, and high energy. If they don't have, I mean, it's hard to assess integrity on an interview call, but the other two are really easy to sense. So intelligence and energy, like if somebody is just like kind of like tired, slow, they don't talk fast, they don't seem to care, very likely like they're probably not going to be what you're looking for if you're trying to like build something from the ground up, and you really do need a team of killers. So high intelligence, high integrity, high energy, look for those things. And then ask yourself at the end, like, could I rely on this person to do the job? Ask yourself if you can rely on them. Like if you don't think you can, like if you just put that in your head and say like, like, okay, this person I'm hiring, like I'm going to trust you to like just go do this and solve it and do it well with documentation and quality. Then, and if the answer is yes, and you think you can rely on them for that, then it's probably a good fit. But those are a couple sniff tests that I really like, is like, are they high energy? Are they high intelligence? Integrity is hard to gauge, and then of course the final one is, can you rely on them? So I really like those things, because if you can rely on someone, it's a lot easier to justify, giving them a slice of the upside. And I think that's a really, really important thing, especially when building. Technology companies are interesting because they're high capex, right? So you have to spend a lot to actually go build the product, find product market fit, and then you can monetize. But then they're usually pretty low OpEx, because then you don't have to like spend too much to actually scale and run the business, because it's all automated, it's all software, it's running on servers. You're not actually spending money to deliver the product or service. So that's why a lot of times technology companies start out with the founders and early employees owning a slice of the company, is because it's usually high capital expenditures at the beginning to actually go build the product and find product market fit. And so you want to incentivize people properly, and when everyone's thinking like an owner, you get some really great efficiencies from that. And so if it's really hard to build a company and build a product if you don't have a lot of alignment from your early team. That's the only thing I'd add there.
Cool. Well, guys, let us know in the comments if you guys have any other questions about team, and maybe Christian or I can answer them as well. But yeah, Christian, we talked a lot today about team. Maybe we can keep that as the theme of today's chat. Any other thoughts about team, maybe before we have any closing remarks?
No other thoughts about team.